16 Israeli F-35 Adirs crossed the Zagros Mountains at 38,000 feet on what was supposed to be the most routine strike of Operation Rising Lion. 30 petroleum targets. 9 days of coalition air strikes, supposedly clearing the air defense threat. A straight line to Tehran and a straight line home. And then a threat diamond appeared on the lead pilot's display, and the entire premise of the mission collapsed in 7 seconds. Because an Iranian S-300 missile system that the intelligence assessment said was destroyed was very much alive, sitting cold in a mountain position 50 kilometers from where the Israelis thought they had killed it. The target they hit on day 3 was a decoy. Correct launcher silhouette on satellite imagery. Plausible thermal signature. Enough debris scattered around the impact site to check every box on the battle damage assessment. But the real battery had been driven into the mountains and had not emitted a single electronic signal since. 9 days of patience. And now 16 aircraft loaded heavy with external ordnance had just flown inside its engagement envelope. This is the part of the air war that nobody is talking about, and it matters more than every Pentagon press conference combined. The Israeli Air Force made a calculated gamble on this mission that reveals how thin the margins actually are in this conflict. The F-35's defining advantage is stealth. Its radar cross-section in clean configuration is roughly the size of a marble. At normal engagement ranges, it is functionally invisible to most air defense radars. But these jets were not flying clean. Each one carried 4 Spice 1,000 precision bombs on external wing pylons and 2,000-pound dams crammed into the internal base. Every external pylon, rack, and hardpoint multiplies the radar return dramatically. Israel calls this configuration beast mode, maximum weapons load at the cost of the jet's stealth signature. They made that trade because 9 days of strikes were supposed to have eliminated anything capable of detecting them. The S-300 crew sitting cold in the mountains was calling that bluff. Meanwhile, please leave your questions or comments in the comment section. I will answer each one individually as time permits. Also, I would be very happy if you liked the video and subscribe to my channel. Now, let's continue. What saved the formation was not Israeli technology. It was American technology operating on a different timeline. An EA-18G Growler from the USS Abraham Lincoln's Air Wing, orbiting western Iran specifically to catch exactly this kind of threat, triangulated the S-300's radar emission the moment it powered up and pushed the coordinates via data link to a second Growler 60 miles south. An AGM-88 HARM anti-radiation missile came off the rail, locked onto the emission frequency, and accelerated past Mach 2. The S-300 crew had roughly 90 seconds from the moment they started searching to the moment they could have transitioned to fire control and launched. The HARM covered the distance in 70 seconds. The missile smashed into the antenna array at Mach 2.1. $15 million of air defense erased in a flash that lit the mountain ridge. The crew never got the shot off. For seconds of margin between a successful suppression and 16 F-35s flying into a missile they could not have outrun. But the S-300 was only the first problem, and it was not even the hardest one. The mission's fuel arithmetic was already broken before the jets reached Tehran. 1,800 kilometers separated Nevatim Air Base from the target area. 1,800 back. Previous operations used KC-707 tankers orbiting western Iraq for aerial refueling. But Iranian intelligence had been tracking those tanker orbits for days, using their movements to predict incoming strike packages. Every time the tankers shifted position, Iran knew a raid was inbound. So tonight the Adirs carried external drop tanks for independence. No tanker dependency, no predictable orbit patterns, no intelligence signature. The trade-off was zero fuel margin. Every evasive maneuver, every course deviation, every second of afterburner burned reserves that did not exist. The S-300 evasion had already consumed fuel the mission plan never budgeted for. And the strike had not even started. 12 kilometers from the Chevron Petroleum Depot in northwestern Tehran, the formation picked up the second threat of the night. Not from behind, from inside the target perimeter. A Panzer S-1 mobile short-range air defense system, Russian-supplied, parked between the storage tanks and hidden from satellite imagery by the tank farm zone geometry. 20-kilometer missile envelope. Inside 4 kilometers, twin 30mm autocannons firing 5,000 rounds per minute under radar direction. The escort element that would normally handle a pop-up threat was still 50 kilometers behind, transitioning from the S-300 engagement. Ruby Lead was alone on the bomb run with nothing between him and the Panzer except the F-35's onboard electronic warfare suite and 8 seconds of exposure inside the autocannon envelope, while the aircraft held a stable dive for weapons release. 8 seconds of radar-directed 30mm fire against a fighter that could not maneuver because the bomb needed a stable platform. The spice released. The pilot broke hard right, flares punching out in pairs, the Panzer's missile warning screaming in his helmet. One round off the rail, tracking, closing. The F-35's electronic warfare system hammered the missile's seeker frequency, flooding it with noise. 3 seconds of silence that felt like 30. The tone warbled, faded. The missile corkscrewed into the dark. Miss. But the Panzer was still radiating when the spice hit storage tank number 2. 30 million liters of gasoline atomized into a vapor cloud that ignited before the fragments stopped traveling. The fireball climbed 300 meters in 2 seconds. And then their own success turned against them. The burning depot generated a smoke column that punched through 5,000 feet and expanded east across the entire Taron Basin, directly into the approach corridors of every remaining target in the strike package. The next wave of aircraft hit a wall of superheated petroleum smoke that no mission planner had modeled. The bomb steer by GPS smoke does not affect their guidance, but it blinds the targeting pods that allow weapons officers to visually confirm their aim points before committing, the human step that separates hitting an oil tank from hitting the apartment complex 300 meters away. Then a mobile GPS jammer activated somewhere in the Taron Basin. Truck-mounted, domestically manufactured, the kind Iran has been building since it allegedly spoofed an American RQ-170 onto an Iranian runway in 2011. Noise flooded the GPS frequencies that every JDAM in the package depends on. Both guidance paths, visual and satellite, degraded simultaneously by 2 threats that did not even know the other existed. An F-15I weapons officer running his radar in ground mapping mode caught the drift. Target coordinates on radar sat 5 meters west of where GPS said they should be. 5 meters sounds trivial until you remember every petroleum depot sits a few hundred meters from residential neighborhoods, and the bombs were already falling. He recalculated corrected aim points and pushed them to every aircraft in the formation via data link. Not perfect precision. Something between GPS spec and radar estimation, stitched together from a back seat through a network running at capacity. Nobody planned for this. It was improvised in real time by a man who noticed the numbers did not match and acted before the math finished. While every sensor in the formation was focused on smoke and phantom coordinates, something launched out of the dark south of Tehran that nobody saw. A single MiG-29 had rolled off a dispersed runway during the Chevron explosions, when the sky was saturated with thermal noise and every pilot's attention was locked on burning fuel tanks. Radar off. No electronic emissions. Running completely dark. Its infrared search and track sensor found an F-16I descending through 18,000 feet toward the southern targets. Engines at military power, pilot's attention on the ground. Warning receiver silent, because there was nothing to warn about. The MiG closed to 8 kilometers. Inside the R-73 missiles envelope. Seconds from a shot the Israeli pilot would never have seen coming. An F-35 transitioning south from the Panzer engagement caught it. The distributed aperture system flagged a moving heat source against the city's thermal background that matched no friendly track. The F-35 pilot locked the MiG with fire control radar. The MiG pilot understood instantly what an F-35 lock meant and broke hard, diving into the thermal clutter of the burning city. The F-35 held the track for 3 seconds before the heat swallowed it. The MiG ran south at low altitude and recovered at a dispersed field. No shots fired, but an Israeli pilot was 8 kilometers from dying without ever knowing he was being hunted. Iran's Air Force was supposed to be grounded. Somebody forgot to tell the MiG-29 pilot. The final target was the hardest. The Tehran refinery, a 225,000 barrel per day processing facility with cracking towers, pressurized vessels holding superheated hydrocarbon vapor at 400 degrees. The target was the fuel storage adjacent to the core. Miss short, empty ground. Miss long, a catalytic cracker ruptures and triggers a cascading chain reaction through connected pipe junctions. The weapons officer could not see his target through the accumulated smoke of 3 depot fires. He was trusting radar mapping, a GPS correction calculated by another crew over a different part of the city, and the math connecting them through a data link at capacity. His fuel gauge had crossed bingo 4 minutes earlier. 1 pass. If the bomb missed, there was nothing left to fix it with. 2,000 pounds dropped into a burning atmosphere on borrowed numbers. The first weapon hit the northern storage. The secondary detonation, 60,000 barrels cooking off simultaneously, registered on the University of Tehran seismographs. The second weapon bracketed the southern perimeter, 120 meters of clearance from the processing core. Through smoke, GPS drift, and thermal updrafts that shoved the bomb 3 meters off its programmed trajectory during terminal flight. 3 meters. The margin between hitting fuel storage and hitting whatever sits on the other side of the fence. The debrief would spend hours arguing whether that was engineering or luck. The answer is probably both, and the fact that the question even needs to be asked tells you everything about how close to the edge this air campaign is actually operating.